What would it mean to frame the debate about UK membership of the EU in the language of the primacy of the common good rather than the primacy of British national interests? I want to offer just a few reflections of my own on that question, drawing on insights of Christian political thought, while acknowledging that others might and do draw very different implications from the same sources, such is the nature of normative political principles. Now, the language of the common good is obviously not uniquely Christian, but in Christian political thought it has assumed pride of place. In this tradition, governments at any level and of any form are said to exist to serve the common good, the welfare of every individual and of the whole society. The common good isn't seen as an aggregate of individual goods, nor is it merely what economists call public goods. Rather, it's made up essentially of what the philosopher Charles Taylor has called irreducibly social goods. That is, human goods that can only be enjoyed and indeed experienced in common. It assumes that sociality is inherently good for human beings. It champions relationality over autonomy, interdependence over independence, common pursuits over the narrow pursuit of self-interest. The common good is not anti-liberal, but it is anti-libertarian. But the term common good itself tells us little about what the precise role of government is, whether at a national or a European level. On its own, it could be invoked, and indeed it has been invoked, to justify pretty much anything that a government would want to do. But in Christian thought, it gets substantive meaning from a distinctive vision of the good society based on a particular view of what it is to be a fulfilled human being. It's not just a platitudinous appeal to altruism. And it's spelled out specifically in two ways. First, in a series of related principles, such as human dignity, freedom, justice, solidarity, subsidiarity, and more recently, ecological responsibility. Second, in a preference for certain institutional forms through which human fulfillment is thought to be realized, including marriage, family, friendship, local geographic communities, to educational or cultural organizations, to economic communities like businesses, trade unions, and to political communities and many more. Well, all of that, of course, still needs to be fleshed out in much more detail if they are to do any work in guiding us on how to think about the politics of the common good at a national and even more at a European level. But at least I hope they set some parameters for what it means in the Christian tradition at least to invoke the common good. And a key point in all this is that these components of the common good must be pursued simultaneously. You can't pursue economic freedom at the expense of social solidarity or ecological responsibility. You can't defend your own cultural identity at the expense of justice for minorities. So we see at the heart of the common good is already a struggle for a proper balance among many diverse and sometimes competing goods. Well, how does all this speak to the question of UK membership of the EU? To the balance, that is, between British national interest and wider European or global interests? Well, in the first place, it obviously means that we cannot reduce the debate about membership of the EU to the question of net economic benefit. Governments at any level don't exist to make us rich, but at best only to create an infrastructure within which responsible economic activity can take place. But sad to say, the government's official leaflet urging voters to vote Remain, you'll all have received those through your door, is dominated by that narrow horizon, as unfortunately is a great deal of the current referendum debate. And it seems to me that now polls are narrowing. Many on the Remain side, like myself, that sentence will have to start differently. I was going to say are panicking. I'm not panicking. Many on the Remain side are panicking because an appeal to mere economic self-interest is turning out to be inadequate to inspire voters to stick with the European project, given all its mounting crises and very palpable failures. But they're running out of ammunition because they lack the vision or the courage to appeal to a richer and more inspiring politics of the common good, both for the UK and for Europe.